Hey guys, Sam here and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how you can stop being that guy at the campgrounds. Stop being the one that as people look, they can immediately tell that you probably don't take care of your camper or RV as much as you should. What do I mean by that? I mean fixing those ratty, tatty, electrical taped up, gumpy, gobby messes of our power cords. So that's right, in today's video I'm going to show you guys how to take your power cord from your RV or camper and make it safe, number one, but also more aesthetically pleasing, and just give people another reason to say, huh, that guy takes care of his stuff. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to put together the Camco RV plug. It is going to be a 50 amp plug in our case for our motorhome, but this same procedure and application will apply to all the other plugs that are available out there from Camco and probably also others as well. So let's get our tools together, get a little work table set up here behind the motorhome, and let's get this thing done. I'm going to start off by putting on some black nitrile gloves, because as this electrical tape that's been a previous hack of a fix has deteriorated, it leaves behind black residue that will stain your hands. So I highly recommend gloves for this. The first thing that's important to note is we have no power running to our camper, either from grid, which is where this guy would have plugged up, or our generator. So make sure all power is off before you ever work on anything electrical. With that being said, the first thing to do is to take off a bunch of this old electrical tape, clean this cord up, and just get to a clean, fresh starting point without any of this junk in our way. With this big old mess of electrical tape off of this cord, we can now see just how bad this is. My goodness, that is a good 2-inch gap here where the insulation stops and the cord plug begins. I don't know what happened to this, probably just got old and cracked and they kept pulling it over and over, but this is terrible. The next thing I'm going to do is use some of these crocodile cloth power scrub wipes. I really like these because they are a nice, easy, portable solution to get a bunch of grime, grease, and junk off. And I'm hoping that I can clean this power cord off and get rid of all the sticky residue from that electrical tape. It's just going to make it a lot easier to work with. I wouldn't say this is a required step necessarily, but this is something that I just have to do because otherwise it's going to be a sticky mess to work with. With the cord cleaned up as much as it's going to be, I want to go ahead and open up my replacement plug-in. This is an RV male plug replacement, and it is a 50 amp, which matches the original power cord and plug style. You can buy these in multiple different amps, 50 amp, 30 amp, 15, 20, whatever you need. And these are a great replacement. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, take a look at how much wire length I need to have exposed to connect it in, because that'll tell me how much of this to cut off or if I need to strip back some of the sheathing of the wire. So inside the package we have the plug itself, but then we have some instructions and how to wire it up. This is your technical true guide on how to wire everything up, so make sure you reference these with the plug that you're doing on your camper. Alright, if you guys can see this, see how the black junk is already getting all over my new plug. And this stuff does not clean up easily. It's actually not wiping off hardly at all with these wipes. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hack this off with some wire cutters and get rid of the nasty gummy mess of the end of this cord. Yes, it's going to make my overall length of my power cord for the RV shorter, but we're talking about maybe 8 inches, and that's not going to be a deal breaker with an RV. We have an extension cable 50 amp cord anyway if we need it, so this is okay for us. I'm going to get my big wire cutters, and I'm just going to snip it off right here as far back as I can to get out of the gunk, but obviously not too far so that I really shorten my cable unnecessarily. Alright, so I feel like the majority of the gunk is right here in this section, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the wire about right here, just to get outside of that really nasty area. I've got some large gauge wire cutters here, largest as I can get, and they're going to have a fun time trying to get through this giant wire. So hopefully, well, we'll just get it done. All right, out with the old, in with the new. Next thing I want to do is, using my Phillips screwdriver, go ahead and undo the screws that are inside this plug and split it open so I can see how long of the wires need to be stripped back from the sheath to begin wiring this up. So looking at the plug, lining up the wire end with this terminal, it looks like I need to strip off about 2.5, maybe 3 inches of the insulation on the wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and hold my thumb here and then use my wire cutters to try and score the outside edge. If these don't open up far enough, then I'll use my pocket knife. But otherwise, you just want to cut the insulation off without damaging the wires inside. A little tip that you can do is, if you get some score lines and you're curious if you've gone far enough or not yet, if you bend the wire, you can usually break that insulation jacket open, and that way you don't have to go all the way through before you get the most of it broken free, and you're just playing it safer on not cutting your wires inside. Alright, our insulation has been cut free, so we'll pull it off of the end. And then this, I guess, reinforced fiberglass strands that are inside here, these little white things, I'm also going to cut these off too. So the only thing we're left with are just the individual wires themselves. Depending upon your camper or RV's electrical system, you may have 4 wires like I do, or you may have 3. Generally, you're going to have a black, which is a hot or 120 volt power leg. You're going to have a white, which is a neutral, and a green, which is a ground. If your RV is like ours, that actually is a 240 volt 50 amp, then you're going to have a red, which is a second hot wire. So red and black are hot, white is neutral, green is ground. Bringing over our instructions, the paper and the package insert from the plug we purchased, I'm going to be referencing exactly which wire they tell me to connect to which terminal, and I'll also be referencing how much they say to strip off the insulation jacket on the end. In my case, it says to strip off 3/4 of an inch of insulation off the end of the wire, and then to connect it into the terminals. Something that is going to be important and handy with this style plug is that these blades actually push through. So what you can do is push these guys from the front to the back and give yourself more room to work with these terminals. It definitely is a sanity saver and something that's very handy, especially as you have these large gauge wires and try and fish them in and around each other. Green, black, red, white. Remember that, Sam. So I'm removing this cable clamp or wire clamp off the very end of the plug, because with our RV being the 50 amp and the wire gauge being so large, I actually need to remove this little insert to make room for my wire. So the little thing here that I move around with my finger, that needs to be taken out in my case. This may not be the case for you, so don't just remove it unless you know you need to for your wire to fit and still clamp down nice and tight inside. Now I can push my wires through here and continue pushing until this clamp bites down on the original jacket and sheathing of the wire. You've got to go at least this far with your plug so that you don't end up having the same issue you had to begin with that brought you to this point. Using my wire strippers, I'm now going to take 3/4 inch off the insulation to strip the ends of the wires and prepare them to attach to the screw terminals. As you can see, I took my wire out of the plug-in to strip those off because it was just going to be too cumbersome. Now that I have all of the ends of the wires stripped off, I'm going to feed it back through the cable clamp, and now I can begin routing the wires and clamping them into place with the screw terminals. To make it a little easier to connect, I'm removed the ground lug from the actual plug itself. I'm bringing it over to the wire, and I'm going to clamp this one down like this first, just because it is the longest reach and it's a little bit tricky to bend it around there. So this is an option that you can do if you need to. Just don't forget which one goes where and in what orientation the blades were in before you took it out. As you are tightening the wires in on these blades, there are little V notches on the gold portion. Make sure your wire is sitting in the cradle of that V notch. That way it holds it in place the best. And it lines it up and is able to pinch it and clamp it down as tight as possible. Once you have your wire clamped down, if you have some excess copper wire sticking out like I do, you can easily just trim those off with some wire cutters. The last wire that I had to connect is my white neutral, and it's a little bit long, as you can see, because the others have been pulled forward to their terminals. I'm going to strip this wire back further so that it's the appropriate length for this terminal, and then I'll cut off the excess copper when I'm done connecting it. And just like that, our new plug has now been connected to our power cord. I used my screwdriver as a hammer, which do it if you want to, don't if you don't. But I wanted to make sure all of these blade terminals were seated as far as possible in the plug so that the correct amount protruded on the end that we need for use. So what I'm going to do now is try and move this black cord forward to get as much insulation to bite on that clamp as possible. I'll hold it in place and then I'll tighten these screws down to finish out the clamp for holding the cord into place. With the clamp secured, we're able to see that it's biting into the black insulation, and we have a little bit sticking out into the inside of the plug. Honestly, I would have liked if this was a little bit further, but at least it is biting for the complete clamp width, and that should do good. At this point, we're ready to take our back cover, put it over like this, flip the whole unit over, and then attach the 3 screws here, here, and in the middle to close this up and finish out the job. And just like that, we have wired ourselves up a new 50 amp RV plug on the end of our wire. We now have a nice looking, safe, secure connection, and our RV just looks that much nicer. But honestly, it is a lot safer to use. So just about 20 minutes later, and we have ourselves a safe, more aesthetically pleasing, nice looking cord for our RV. This is an upgrade from the original because it has the handle on the back, which allows you to pull it and unplug a lot safer and easier than reaching your hands around closer to these terminals or blades. Now that being said, you should never plug or unplug your RV while any power source is on. Remember, as you're at the campgrounds, step number 1 is to turn off all the breakers. Step number 2 would be to plug up your surge protector, then you plug in your power cord. So you never want an energized cord that is being disconnected or connected. That's just asking for trouble. All in all, this is a pretty easy project to do. Probably the most tedious portion was the electrical tape madness, which caused a lot of mess and possible permanent black scars on our nice pretty yellow plug. But then outside of that, just finagling the wires is a little bit difficult too. But nothing that you yourself couldn't do, whether you're at an RV park or here in your yard like we are, in just a matter of minutes or maybe 30 minutes or an hour or 2. There's no telling. Every project is one broken screw away from infinity. That's going to be it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them for us down below. There's also a link to this plug down below if you need it for 50 amps, and I'll also put links to the 30 amps down below as well. As always, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys on the next one. promise they're all on. The camera's just not picking up that middle LED. That's so weird.